Let's do a quick sound check on myself. You should be hearing me. If you can just let me know in the chat. One thing about Substack Live is I have to have the chat window open on the side here. So let's do that. Just checking to see if you guys can hear me. I can probably turn the volume on myself. Let's see. Okay, so I should be coming in. If I'm coming in too low, let me know and I'll try to do a bit better. But I should be coming in loud and clear. Where the heck? I have too many windows open. I need this one. Okay. I'm gonna do a transition scene. I love it. So the reason why I'm a few minutes early is because I do want to start like I normally would with my monthly recap live, which is to just read off the name of the stories and such for the month. This one's going to be a bit different because I have the Midnight Vault crew joining, so I will explain that in just a few minutes, but I just wanted to um, get in here, and then this way it gives people, 15, 20 minutes to kind of uh, get in here, and then I will be dialing them in at the top of the hour, and we will be commencing with that. Let me go ahead and actually get the list up. That would help too, that I'm going to be reading off. Where is it? Here we go. Oh, I need to change the filter to, what do I need to change it to? I need to change this. Okay. All right, let me change my scene so you can see my face. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Normally I would crop my window and all these things, but I just don't have the time for that right now. So what you see is what you see. Not yet. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. I am going to be reading a very short list of the monthly recap, and there's a reason why. So, as you know, I'm going to be interviewing the Midnight Vault team in a few minutes, and I thought, because I have nothing but time on my hands, and et cetera, and they don't even know this, but I decided to kind of cherry pick, kind of not, through the 98, almost 100 stories that were submitted to the Midnight Vault 2, and I have 25 of them. And those 25, just to give people a small smattering of like, what you can expect, what you can read if you want to do the gauntlet, go through the gauntlet, and actually read all 98 stories if you haven't already. But yeah, so I'm going to be reading 8 names and titles that have been featured in the last 4 weeks of um, Top and Fiction. But when you get to the email, it's going to have those 8 plus an additional 25 that I'm not going to read simply because I feel like if I'm not going to read all 98, then I don't feel right just reading off the 25. So that's why this is going to be really short, really sweet. Typically, I think normally the monthly recap lives have anywhere between 15 and like 20 plus that I am reading the names for based on how I typically do these. Again, if my voice is too loud, because I see it giving feedback of like red, just let me know and I can try to move my mic up or down or change the gain on my own mic. Okay, so let me read those and then I will dial in the team of the Midnight Vault crew. So this is I'm actually going to move this list over here since you guys can't see the screen. Okay. I have so many windows open. Ooh, let me change this to busy. Okay. Here we go. So this is the monthly recap live number 11 for the month of November, which are stories that were written between November 1st and November 28th of this year. Infestation, written by Drew Valdez of Meat Sandwich. A Complex Case, written by Didrik of Grimelight. The Waiting Well, written by Jennifer Jorgensen of Snark Floats. Winter's Hold, written by A. M. Bowman of Navalus Unlocked. The Stranger in Red, and Three Sealed Gifts, written by E. H. Lau of Hatching Stories. Tubby Time, written by Sincerely Seb of My Substack. Iridium and Ichor, written by L.G. Wells of Ink and Shadows. Jeepers Creepers, It's the Grim Reaper, written by Howard Fox of The Joke's on You. So those 8 can expect to receive a medallion when I send out the email later today. Now I need to move this window back out of my way and bring the chat back up. It's a little bit early, but I think I'm going to at least dial people in. And I'm going to move this over. And oh, I can actually pop it out. That's even better. Let's do a pop out. And then let's do a full screen. Can you hear me? Okay, wait, I can't hear you. Hold on, let me go to Discord and oh la 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 la. Where did I just, oh, I shrunk it. I'm like, where did I just, that's not it. Okay, I'm about to do something very funky because I lost where, oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, I need to visit settings. Hold on, I need to change my output device. Should not be that. It should be this. Hello? Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. Oh, hold on, let me fix that. Let me fix that. Here we go. How's that? Yeah. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Awesome. I had to just change it just this thing just decides to do whatever it wants. Oh, and of course, I just get a notification that my battery is low. Hold on one second. Okay, plugged in my headset. Um, oh my God, my phone has just been like automatically transcribing everything I've been saying and about to send this long text to my wife. Hold on. Why did I must have accidentally hit the mic on my phone. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. That's bad. Stop recording me. of all the things for my phone to do at this very moment, um, okay, if I had hit send on that, that would have been stop. How do I make it stop? Oh, okay. All right, turning my phone over and shutting off the screen so that doesn't happen again. All right, now I'm going to transition so that everyone who sees what I'm doing on the screen is like, what is happening? Um, Let me go over to, and I'm going to change it to this. Voila. We should be now, and I think everyone should be able to hear you. I'm going to just do a test. We should be now, and I think everyone should be able to hear you.
Hello, hello.
I'm going to just do a
Yay,
test.
I can see it on the live stream.
Should be now, and I think everyone should be able to hear you.
Hello, hello.
I'm going to just do a
Yay,
test.
I can see it on the
I
live
think I
stream.
do need to turn you guys up a little.
Okay, you
Let me see
want
if I,
everybody to say something?
yeah, if I can just get everyone, because I know, I think Jay, I heard you, but it was coming through a little low.
All right, well,
Just get
how about
everyone,
this?
because I know,
Uh,
I think Jay, I heard you, but it was coming
the
through a
Midnight
little
Vault 2.
low.
Here we are. All right, well,
Just get
how about
everyone,
this?
because I know,
Uh,
I think Jay, I heard you, but it was coming
the
through a
Midnight
little
Vault 2.
low.
Here we are.
I could hear that.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I do have it, the gain very low. Why do I have, you know what, I probably have it so low because when I do this in other settings,
have it
I want it low, but let's change the
gain very
property.
low.
Why do I have, you know what, I probably have it so low because when I
I'm an
do this in
incredibly
other
loud
settings,
talker, so don't
I
meter it to
want it
me, I
low, but
suppose.
let's change the property. You know what, I probably have it so low because when I
I'm an
do this in
incredibly
other
loud
gonna
talker, so
change
don't
it
meter it
just
to
a
me,
little
I suppose.
bit in case Jay decides to start screaming. Okay. All right, I'm gonna change
Which is
it just a
possible.
little
He's been
bit
known to do that.
in case Jay decides to start screaming. Okay. All right, I'm gonna change
Which is
it just a
possible.
little
He's
bit.
been known to do that.
I think we're good now. I just want to mute
All right.
this. I want to mute the chat now because I'm going to start hearing things twice and
I
going
think we're
crazy.
good now.
I just want to mute this. Okay. That sounds so much better now. I'm just hearing you live instead of hearing you and then hearing an echo of myself seconds later. Okay.
Excellent.
One thing I don't know why it's doing is making the window go big and small over and over again. I don't
Let's
know
do
why
that.
it's doing that. That's going to bug me. Um,
Yeah.
You guys are probably seeing that too. I'm going to try to, instead of doing full screen, I'm going to try to just resize the window itself. And let's see if that is a little better. Because what it's
Oh, now
doing
we're
now
teeny tiny.
is just so weird. Yeah, that might work a little better.
Technology
And then it'll
sometimes
stop
allows you to look.
flashing, I think. Yeah, I think it's working now. It's not flashing like it was before. Okay. Phew. All right. See, I told you this would work. And I'm glad I thought of it because honestly, like I know Jay, you said that you had access to like be able to do a longer thing if you wanted to, but in the back of my mind, I was kicking myself like, why do I always forget that Discord has a video feature? Like I always forget that. And it just dawned on me today. So I really wanted to test it with you guys today. I'm like, I know that Jay, you could probably have done it for us, but I was like, no, I really want to make sure that this is a thing that I can do in the future because Substack, if you're listening, let us do more people on the lives through Substack Live. It would be so
For
helpful.
sure.
Okay, so now we're officially
Mhm.
here. Hello, everyone in the chat. Hello, gentlemen. To I didn't intend when I said the beefiest monthly recap live for it to be taken the way that it was. I literally meant it because I had chosen like so many stories to feature in this issue. Like there's going to be I think 33. So that was my thought process when I used that word. And when it was taken to a whole different thing, I was like, well, let's lean in a little. Sure. Right. Of course. But
I'm sorry, I forgot my smoking jacket.
yeah, what happened to the smoking jacket? All right, so let's start with introductions. I know when I gave you my high level topics to discuss, Brian got a little nervous, so I will have him introduce himself last. because I did.
Well, I think you made him nervous because you just said it was going to be the Brian show, and
Right.
anytime the spotlight's just on him, he gets a little
I
nervous.
just put all about Brian, period. Like, that's that's the topic of discussion. So okay, so let's start. I'll start from right beneath me here. So Shane, you can go first, and then we'll go around.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Shane Bizdock. I'm a visual designer. That's my day job, and an aspiring writer as much as I can. Um, all the while trying to make sure my family knows that I see them and love them as well. I do everything in Austin, Texas. So thanks for having me here, Erica.
All right, Jay.
All right, I'm Jay Curtis. I write the Substack Tiny Worlds, and along with my partners here, we've been putting together over the last couple of months all the stuff that you are now reading as the Midnight Vault 2. My day job, I'm a consultant. I teach people how to run projects. I teach companies how to do that on a daily basis. So that's sort of like just slot in a writing project or a fiction, a collaborative fiction project into that, and you just spin the gears and you hopefully do it the right way.
All right, Brian, you're up. Spotlight's on
Oh
you.
boy, big swing. Here we go. My name is Brian Paroli. I am a writer slash communications professional slash journalist slash marketer. It depends on the day and the client. But I've been, writing since I was in second grade, and getting to tag along with these two on this project has just been a thrill. Um, Worked mostly on creating the partnerships and some of the marketing stuff that's been happening behind the scenes, helping to get the partners and just having a great time with it. And I am over here in Portugal, a couple hours ahead of these guys. So, it's wine o'clock for me here, but I'm holding off. I'm sticking with tea.
Wine o'clock. I love it.
Well, I'm
That's
glad
a
that
very clever idea, though, putting the tea bag, string outside of the wine.
yeah
Totally.
Man,
to
that's
make
good.
it to make us think that that's what you're drinking. Sure, sure. So I'm glad we ended on Brian because I would like to ask Jay and Shane how Brian joining the team came about.
That's a really good question. I think Brian was already doing some stuff last time that was helping us out, like doing some outreach, doing some PR. And so, as Shane and I were talking about putting the Midnight Vault again together again this year, it was sort of like Brian was the obvious person because he has such wonderful skills in reaching out to people and to have those conversations. Um, Potentially things that Shane and I aren't very good at, which is, hey, would you like to partner with us? Would you like to help promote us? Um, and so I think we just came up with a big list together, didn't we, Brian? Of like, here's what we think we want out of sponsors, what type of categories, what type of things. And Shane, am I misremembering any of that?
No, that sounds all good. And Ryan's been so like eager to help and just jumped right in and so instrumental in landing the partners that we landed this year. Very impressive. He's been a great addition to the team.
So
Aw.
piggybacking, I guess, off of that, um, Brian, you taking what they were looking for in sponsors, and then you guys working together collaboratively. What were you looking for, and how did that process go about with not just finding the people you wanted to work with, but actually then the reaching out and the getting the ultimate yes, like of course we'd love to work with you. Was it as easy as we all thought it was? Or we all assume.
Are
I
we
say
assuming it was easy?
sarcastically.
Yeah, who's assuming it was easy? Uh,
Right.
I think the vision was clear from the onset that we wanted to work with some partners strategically, not just anybody. Like we didn't
Hmm.
just want, Amazon hopping on board or just some giant, box stores saying, yeah, we'll carry the book. So there were some brands that were thrown out there, but then it was really just emailing everyone, just trying everything, seeing what would stick.
Hmm.
I have a spreadsheet of like 300 people that I was contacting, and I think we got extremely lucky that Blackwing and Gotham and Lulu all connected with us. But I also think it speaks to the project itself that they saw what we were doing and
Hmm.
it resonated with their brands, and we see what they're doing and we like them. So it just all sort of came together. But easy is not the word
Right.
I would add to it.
Now, you probably can't talk about it too much, but were there any that you really wanted and you're hoping you could get next time around, or like any sponsors who might have said yes, but you realized it might not have been a good fit this time around? Like, was that ever an issue, or
Well,
were you just kind of
Brian, we
like
had to
open door and saying, whoever says yes, bring them on?
no, we had to turn down Aston Martin this time because it's
Dang,
just
yeah.
not the right
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
next time, let me know. I'll do a story that has to do with a car, no problem.
That's right. Well, I put a Corvair in mine, but they don't make those anymore.
They might have brought it back, the Midnight Vault edition. You never know.
There you go.
Not
All
if
you
they
have to
read
do
the end
is
of the
ask.
story.
Uh-huh. So let's talk a bit about 98. What a wonderful number. So close to 100, you could almost taste it. And so that, I think, before I focus on the 98, I want to know, like, are you, now that you have superseded what you did the first time around, where you really just invited people, so you didn't know what would happen when you opened the doors to just anyone to just enter, are you now setting a pace that most of us do, which is next year I need to beat last year? And so you're already kind of thinking, how can I uh, surpass 100 next year, and get 150 submissions? Like, is that a thing, or are you just cool with anyone who enters can enter, and I'm gonna focus on something, so on the numbers in a different way than in the numbers of, like, I want to reach 100 next year. I'm not satisfied. We
Well,
never
okay,
are.
so
We always want to
let's
surpass,
let's
right?
stop for a minute because I don't think anybody on this call has read all 98 yet.
No, no. And
No.
anyone who
Brian's
has,
ahead
who
of us.
claims that, is lying.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
That's all they've been doing for the last week and 2 days.
No.
Um, let's get before we talk about what we might do for next year, right? Because it's all a might. It's all
Right.
like this. The snowball rolling down the hill from last year was a really great experience, and so doing it this year felt like, of course, we would do it. And so even as Shane and Sean and I talked about it, sort of last spring, like it was a wonderful experience as the book was coming out. Um, that was an obvious thing to like rekindle that conversation again, probably midsummer, I think, is when we started talking about it. And so I think instead of talking about what might happen next year, we should talk about like how amazing it is that 98 writers came to the table this year. I wrote in the stats article that came out yesterday that we thought 30, 40, like we would just sort of best what we did last year. We did
Right.
not expect the
Yeah.
the onslaught of
Hmm.
stories that showed up basically in the last 3 days,
There was,
4 days.
a point where Jay actually was nervous. He said, I don't know if we're going to get enough stories, guys.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the
yeah.
book would have already been done by now had we only had about
Yeah.
30 stories.
And
Sure.
I think what really impressed me um, was the fact that there was such a short time limit on doing it. Um,
Yeah.
because I'm always looking at that when people hold an event. The question I always have is it, how much time do you give a person to write a thing for a thing? If you give them too long, they might forget, and you have to constantly remind them. If you give them too short, then they might say they didn't have enough time, and so they didn't write it. And so, what's the sweet spot? It's almost like, what's the sweet spot for the length of a story? Is it 2,000 words, 3,000 words, 4,000 words? You never know. And so, I think what was even more impressive is not just the number of people, but if you look down the list of the names, we all know half of them are already doing their own projects. So they've already got a serial they're writing, something else they're working on. And
Mhm.
so not only did they continue to do the things that they've been doing before those 5 weeks that you gave us all to write a story, we found extra time, additional time to then write that story, um, and write thousands of words for that story, which is pretty awesome, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, five ish weeks, 6 weeks feels like the right amount of time. It's not too long for
Hmm.
people to forget. It's also not too short for people to like sort of conceptualize for a week or so and then to draft. And then as we started talking to, before we did all this, before when we started talking to the editors, that would be, Sally, Emil, and Kristen, eh, like, can we give people enough time but not too much time, and can they have enough time to get it into an editorial phase, at least a beta round of reads and notes?
Hmm.
um, I think you're right, which is that you can't give people too much time because it'll just get lost,
Yeah.
right? It's sort of like the mail that sits on your counter. You're like, I don't know where that came from. um, I don't know that I would do much more. I mean, what do you guys think? 5, 6 weeks is seems reasonable.
I'm gonna try I'm gonna test that because I've been dealing with that myself with things. So in 2026, any events that Top and Fiction does is going to have a 5 to 6 week window of time to write it and see how that works. If I get more or less interest in it because of the time constraints or the lack of time constraints and having that much breathing room, because then I also worry that if you sit too long with it, then it becomes a problem. Or if you push it off, because like that's what I did. And Jay,
Hmm.
and everyone who was watching me on notes, every day I was constantly saying it ain't happening. Like
Hmm.
I don't have time. I haven't sat with it yet. And I think I wrote it the day before. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to break night and like not sleep and just get up early and figure this out and try to slap this together as best as possible. And I will tell you, it's probably the worst thing I've ever written in a very long time. But I wrote it, and it's out there, and people can read it, and
Congrats.
Yeah.
make that decision. And I had to do it, but I know there were probably other people like me because, like you said, the bulk of the people who submitted was at the end. And so, you can't speak for everyone and say, well, maybe it's because they all waited till the last 2 days to write it. But that's I feel like that's what a lot of us do. We think we have all the time in the world, so we're just like, I don't have to really work on this today. I have time tomorrow. I'll work on it tomorrow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean,
and to be clear, I think more than 50% of them got submitted in the first 4 weeks,
Hmm.
right? And it was just sort of that last rush where we thought, oh, I think it was about every other day when I would post on Discord, oh, we're at 30, oh, we're at 40, oh my God, we just hit 68,
Hmm.
you know,
mhm.
where there was just there would be like these big rushes toward the end. But I think most everybody just submitted like on a normal timeline. Uh, by the way, I also think that the time that Brian and Shane and I spent going through the majority of how to submit and what
Mhm.
the structure is and what is required of you. Uh, Notably, there are a few things that we didn't do properly
Hmm.
because we had some last minute entries where the deadline wasn't quite as clear as it should have been. But we gave everybody a structure to work with, and so once you sort of have those guardrails in place,
Hmm.
and we talked through those a lot, giving people 6 weeks within some guardrails, like that seemed a reasonable way of getting people to the table in time.
And okay, so I know you all admitted that you haven't read all 98. And so the question I have as a person who runs a contest or runs an event, and I don't know if you're going to be expecting this question from me, but are you rethinking 20? Seeing that there are 98, because you originally said you're going to select 20 to be in
Hmm.
volume 2. So is there any part of you, and you might not feel comfortable answering yet because you haven't read all 98, to know that, man, there's 5 that are just amazing, and if I go with these 20 and I don't take these 5. Could we stretch it to 25? Like I feel like you
Mhm.
never want to plant your flag and say 20 is what we're going to select, and then you move on, and then you turn around and you see 98 people standing there saying, okay, which one of us are you picking? I don't want to be me basically saying I don't want to be in your shoes. But
Mhm.
has that been a discussion where you're kind of like, you know what, guys, let's start with 20 as our baseline, but if we find a few more that are just really good and that we don't want to leave it out, we are more than willing to go above 20.
It comes down to how thick do we want this thing to be, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I think,
Well, I think. Go ahead, Brian.
well, some of the stories we were talking about, some of them are very short, and if
Hmm.
they're very good short stories, and it's number 21, and it's an extra 4 pages in the book, we're not glued to anything per se, but we do have the page amounts that we're thinking about in the design
Hmm.
of the book, which
Right, right.
yeah.
Well, I think maybe we haven't outwardly said it. We've definitely talked about it on the Discord channel, which is sort of I've been saying plus minus 20,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and because that fluctuation of something that came in that's really great that should be included versus something that's sort of in the middle, um, that gives us that flexibility.
Hmm.
I'm not tied to 20. I'm not tied to 10. We had 29 last time, and some of the stories, Shane's Minds, Edith, ran in the neighborhood of like 6. That so like being judicious with how many pages per story, how big the book is, and I think we've already talked about that it's going to be a hardback book this time,
Hmm.
and sort of looking at the heft and the shipping and like a
Right,
number of other factors too is I think worthwhile.
right. Okay, so can you talk a little bit about your selection process? Like, are you thinking thematically? Are you thinking, because I'm sure you're not just thinking length of story, you are also thinking about the story predominantly. So is there um, something you're leaning more towards than others in terms of what makes a good Midnight Vault story? We know what makes a good Twilight Zone story, but I'm thinking like, how do we separate in some way you from the Twilight Zone in saying what makes a good Midnight Vault story?
It's a good question. I think thematically is an interesting one. In the submissions guidelines, we detailed out some of the categories that we would look at. So originality and craft and atmosphere and even reader response, and then fit, which I think thematically goes to
Yeah.
that same topic, right? So do these stories all seem to go together? Do these stories paint a broader picture with the canvas of what that book is? I think that gives us the flexibility in there. Um, I wouldn't discount out the like clever turn of phrase that really like makes a story sing, or the you know insistence from the audience that read these stories to tell us like directionally how to think about which ones should be included.
Hmm.
We've been talking about a lot of stats over the last couple of days, but like there's the gut feel, right? And then there's the audience response. And they're not necessarily the same thing, but we should like play heed to what that bigger picture looks like within the book.
Right.
I'll these guys should probably have, say their opinion too about how we decide these things.
It's definitely not based off bribes. We're not bribable. Got out there early, right?
That's not what you told
Yeah.
me yesterday, Brian. Wait a minute.
I mean, it is true that there is a gut feeling when you're reading the story and you get that twist at the end and it's satisfying and it's well written and you're thinking about it later and the characters pop into your head, when you wake up in the morning and it's like, oh, that
Mhm.
those are the that I think are just the consensus is going to lean towards them. Um, And then, some stories they're well crafted, they're nicely written, but maybe they don't have that oomph factor
Mhm.
that we're looking for. It doesn't mean it's not a good story. It's just it might not be enough to push it into the anthology.
Mm,
So, I mean, I don't have anything personally I'm looking for. I would like a smattering of sci-fi, horror, allegory, fantasy, a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
And I would like, a few different themes. If every theme is going to be AI, it's going to be tough then to read the book and be excited about it. So it's like, okay,
yeah.
well, how do we parse through that? So there will be like probably a better AI story than another AI story, and it's going to come down to that we can't
Mhm.
have six of them in the book. But these are things that we don't even know yet because 98 stories is very many stories,
Well,
and we're still working through them.
that's right. I mean, we could just publish them all. Be like a book this thick.
Well, I will say that I didn't do a crazy thing and see how many pages would it be if you were to publish them all and tell you how many words that would be, 356,000. Anyway, so and it would be a little over 700 pages, but that's besides the point. I didn't do that. Me? No.
Well, actually, what's funny is Emil and I had a conversation about exactly that, like how big the book would be, how many pages, and like could you, in a bound book, use the thinnest paper possible to print all the stories? And it was like, this is like it's getting crazy town, right?
And
To
part of
publish
me
all this
wanted
book.
to ask the other question, and I wasn't going to, but I think I'm going to ask anyway, which is, did you also consider a volume three coming out sooner than you anticipated? So, because in my mind, volume three is next year, and I'm looking forward to it, right? I'm already looking forward to volume three next year in 2026. But is there,
Right.
or in 2027 really? But is there a world in which you said you really loved half of them, and so you don't want to do a book that's 500 pages? Why not just do volume two and volume three from the 98 you have? I mean, I don't want to
Volume
parse it and,
volume
and make you go crazy with all
Yeah,
of these thoughts, but these are thoughts that I was having, and I was like, I don't know if they even considered that. If they were just like, no, we're just going to make one book from the options we have, and then next year we're going to get a whole new batch of 98 stories to do volume three with.
mhm. It's certainly been discussed, the
Yeah.
omnibus version of the world. Um, it there's a part where it sort of takes the sparkle off of the stories that were selected when you
Right.
do
Right.
that. And it's
Agreed.
not to say that any of the stories that were submitted, any of the participants are any less a writer or less a great writer, because I think it's like it's subjective at least at some level, right? Which
Yep.
stories get chosen, um, and I don't want to take anything away from everybody, but also it's the same issue I have with sort of everybody gets the track and field award just because they
Okay.
participated.
Hmm.
Um, I, I don't quite buy that.
Right. And something I wanted to bring up as well. I was trying hard not to say Twilight Zone, or lean too deeply into Twilight Zone, even though I know that that's where this all birthed from, the Twilight Zone, and your love and our love of Twilight Zone. But I do want to also point out that it is very subjective because, you know, hate me if you want, but Nightmare at 20,000 Feet and To Serve Man are not my favorite Twilight Zone episodes. And I feel like there's this idea that because it's the most popular one, it's the one that everyone always talks about, it's William Shatner, it's, whatever, that we're all almost conditioned to be like, when you think of Twilight Zone, these are the episodes that come to mind because that's what people are talking about. And so you know, I did need a variety. If Twilight Zone was all sci-fi and space, I probably wouldn't have liked Twilight Zone. It probably wouldn't have appealed to me because I don't like particularly sci-fi, says the girl who loves Star Trek and is a Trekkie, and who also wrote Mira, which is sci-fi, but that's besides the point. And so that's not my thing.
Right.
Like my favorite Twilight Zone episodes don't take place in space and have nothing to do with aliens.
Yeah.
So you have to, like you said, have a wide variety, that Twilight Zone is not just science fiction. It is a little bit of everything, and so it's always good to, like Jay, you said, you don't want to do 40 or 50 stories because it muddies the waters if you have too many AI, and then you start thinking, like I am thinking as I'm putting together my own anthologies, is the order of the stories, because you don't want all the AI stories together. You don't want all of these together. You want to separate them. You don't want a story that's too long next to a story that's too short, and you could drive yourself insane at some point. That
Yeah.
you It's just easier if you have less to work with to juggle that into a book, into a table of contents, and all of that goes with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
think
I
that
want to say
variety.
two things about the two Twilight Zone episodes that you mentioned do not even show up in our curated list from Sean McDonald, right? The Nightmare at 20,000 Feet and To Serve Man, because they're not. They may be like sort of audience favorites, but they weren't typifying what we think of as really great Twilight Zone episodes,
Hmm.
right? As a way of sort of pointing people in the right direction. You think of like It's a Good Life or A Stock Foot Willoughby's or things like that, where they're allegories or they're tales that shift, and they might sit in the sci-fi universe in some of those cases. Like I think Eye of the Beholder is probably one that probably straddles that line a little bit, Brian. But like those stories that we chose were really subjective to the audience that we were trying to curate for
Hmm.
this. Sorry, Shane, I cut you off.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, the variety that we're talking about also, it holds true to the spirit of the first book. And I think, there are some things that we laid down when we did that first book, as great of an experiment as it was. There was a lot of guesswork involved, and we just kind of went for it. But we ended up with this really rich variety of stories, and even the subtitle, Unlocking Worlds. I think we just need to stay true to that, and
Hmm.
yeah, variety is everything. What makes it so interesting?
Mhm.
And so let's now talk a little bit about facts, because I love numbers. I love looking at the numbers, parsing them, dissecting them. But I also understand on some level that I can't control them. So while I love looking at, how many likes, how many opens, how many clicks, they are uncontrollable pieces of data. And a lot of it, as you said, Jay, to the people in the Discord server and on notes, not only are they uncontrollable, but not 100% accurate either. So while you
Mhm.
compile all this data for yourself, and I would imagine arguably for sponsors now and in the future, to let them know this is a thing you want to be a part of. Here are the numbers, because that's the only way to prove this is with that kind of data. Um,
Mhm.
how, like, is this going to help you in any way in planning not just this book, but future ones? Like, are you looking at changing your formula for how you did the Midnight Vault 2? Because this is much different from one, only in the to me, in the fact that you even created a Substack specifically for it, right? Like that to me was the big leap.
Mhm.
Was you did one, you kind of let it be its own thing organically. You did it very much behind the scenes. No one knew about it till you chose to tell us about it, and by then it was like, this is when they're coming, be ready. And now this
Mhm.
year you decided, we got a Substack, we're going to be public, we're going to bring sponsors in, we're going to do a big thing. So now, how much of the numbers and the facts that you're now gathering giving you information to possibly now do a new shift next year after you finish this one? Because I know there's still much more to do, publishing it, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, let's talk about the numbers just as a sort of an overview. I started collecting numbers because I wanted to see how well we were doing with an audience. It had little to do with what the sponsors are expecting. And in fact, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, none of our sponsors are requiring us to pay any homage back to them in terms of data, or certainly not email list or anything else.
Hmm.
No KPIs.
No KPIs. Very good. Um, so it was more like I think I just started looking at what was happening. We had been doing the genre breakdown the entire time. I kept posting stuff on Discord and a few notes about what the genres were doing, and then started looking further at the data. Right, it was sort of just my own edification of like what is actually happening.
Mhm.
Right, and the heat map came from that. The Because everything came through a Google form, we knew exactly when people were dropping their stories in there. So we saw the deadlines and how they sort of amassed at the end. Um, and it's just sort of, it was like, what is the story that we're seeing? And it's more reactive than it is proactive in terms of like, what is the data, and how is it meaningful? Um,
Mhm.
it's your question about, does it help influence sponsors for next year? Of course it does. We went back and we looked at all the data from the stories after 9 months, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian and Shane, and saw that there were over 100,000 reads across the 31 stories that were available last year, just
Mhm.
on Substack. We looked at our book sales, which we were over 250 units or something like that, and we're like, these are kind of interesting data points. We don't know if any sponsors really care about those things, as opposed to just like, are they interested in what we're doing? Are they interested in the sort of the niche market that we can bring to the table, um, that aligns with their brand? But of course, we want to be able to have those data points to be able to do that with. And we'll, I think 98 stories is a lot harder to go get data from than 31.
Right.
So thank you to everybody who submitted. And by the way, you can keep submitting your data to me, and I'll just update the numbers.
Mhm.
Um, so I think from that perspective, it's not, there's nothing untoward about the data. It's just started as a curiosity more than anything else. And what it eventually becomes, let's call it a year from now when we're talking to other sponsors, I don't know. I don't know how meaningful that is, because it was really about going after the sponsors that we really liked, Blackwing Pencils, and the Gotham Coffee, and Print on Demand partner in Lulu. So I think we sort of hit on the people that we wanted to work with.
Mhm.
Whether it matters to other sponsors who might want to be involved next year, I, I'll wait until next year to find that out.
Mhm. And now, let's talk a little bit more about deadlines, because there's the deadline to write the story, but now I'm really curious about the deadline that you guys have set for yourselves to publish it. You already talked about you're going to do a hardcover, and as someone who, like I said, is also running contests and events and things, I know how that can be stressful, and you guys do it like right through the holiday season. So like what deadlines are you giving yourself to have read all 98, to have selected major selections, to start, giving this, I don't know if it's probably going to be Shane, to them do the interior pages and make them look pretty and amazing in the book, and all of these things, all the magic happen. So are you thinking of moving the needle of like not copying last year's model of having it come out in March, or are you still like, you know what, we like March as a deadline, as a date for release date, and that's what we're shooting for, come hell or high water, so y'all better have read all 98 by January 1st.
Yes.
I'm just watching Shane.
Yeah, just he's
I
just
know.
thinking about like, wait, what's my deadline?
Kind of at the
Wait,
end of the
what's
line.
happening?
So yeah,
What do I have
if the
to
book's
do?
late, it's probably going to be my fault.
And I
Um,
hope that every
yeah.
story you pick is the unique ones, where I've seen screenplay
Oh yeah.
snippets, I've seen text, I've seen like
Yes,
all
exactly.
manner of things in every single, and every time I read a story and it has that, my immediate thought, because I'm such a nerd about doing interior pages, is, man, if they pick this story, what's he gonna do? Like, how is he gonna visually put this on the page? I hope they pick this one just for that.
But I loved putting all that stuff in the first book. I mean,
Right.
it just made all the stories so unique
Hmm.
and the book so unique. So I'm eager to do that again, and even more, lavish format. We're doing hardcovers, so I'm really excited. But yeah, we have a tall order ahead of us. We have all those stories to read and curate and discuss and agree upon, and that's even before we start getting final copy that may or may not need another round of editing,
Right.
etc. That then has to be laid out, and all the design has to happen. I mean, it's a big job, and it's going to
Are
take
you
some time.
dividing and conquering, or are you all on that mission of we're all going to read all 98?
Yeah,
We're all going to read all
we,
98.
we're
We
going
have
to read
we have
all of
our scorecards already set up.
Okay.
the list is here.
And you check them off
Yeah.
as you go.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I don't know that we have an exact date yet, but one timeline that I think is worth talking about is we're not going to choose the stories until after the first of the year. We're not going to start notifying authors. Like, there's just like we just got through Thanksgiving. We're still like, I don't know. I'm still on sort of a tryptophan sleep something or other. So
Mhm.
I don't know. We got a few more holidays to get
Yeah, I feel
in.
like you should give yourself
98
some
stories.
grace to enjoy the holidays, and then, maybe tackle the second half um before you move on. And so now I want to now think about the audience who's here and who may have read some already, may not have read some already. And Shane, you just showed you've got yours printed out, that you guys cleverly made the PDF where you could check off. The second I saw that, I was like, oh, that's my Agatha Christie checklist, which I literally have to like check. Right, they made a checklist if prefer Poirot and Miss Marple and whatever. It looks exactly like what you guys made. I was like, oh shoot, that's clever. I should have thought of that. So how are you attacking the list? Let me say, because I know there are some people who are like, I'm going to go in order. Are you trying to give yourself a little spice of life and say, you know what, I don't want to read all the horror and pee my pants and not be able to turn the lights out at night in one go. Let me read some horror now and some comedy later. Like, how are you looking at story length? Are you looking at, let me read someone I don't know versus someone I do? Like, how are you attacking
Yeah,
the list?
I'm being a little selfish. I'm starting with a few friends, that I know that have submitted. So I'm kind of starting that pool. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely don't want to necessarily start at the top. And in fact, like on weather reports, and even on this, once I get into the list, I really want to start from the bottom because they inevitably get the least amount of attention, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to give them attention from
Right.
the start. And that's my plan,
Yeah,
kind of
I've been
bottom.
making an Excel sheet so that I don't see stories that are restacked or stories that are commented on, and I just pick a title that interests me. And I think the list, I don't even know if our list is in any sort of order. Um, and so I'm just like, oh, I'll pick number 46 right now and read this. And it's a little surprise because yeah, it's good after you do two or three AI ones or two or three horror ones in a row, they do start, not that they blend together because they're the same, but you're in the same sort of, mind space, and it's
Mm-hmm.
good to reset that and then jump to fantasy or jump to allegory to get something fresh.
Mhm. I don't have a system. Uh, but one thing that I did notice uh, in looking at the stats, we were talking about it on the Discord, who got the most likes, who got the most restacks, things like that. One of the things that I noticed is when you look at how they're displayed on the entire vault list, we have created an unintentional bias that the top stories, which is the fantasy, and then it goes to the horror, and then it goes to sci-fi, um, that the ones at the very top have actually gotten more hits and more likes. But I think that's just unintentionally that we just put them in that order, but they could have been in any order.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I'm sort of jumping around the list because I want to, like, I don't know, reverse the curve at least at some
yeah,
point.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and Jay, I wanted to give a little bit of a dig at you and ask, are you happy to know that you're not the longest story that was submitted? Because I know there was a bit of a joke going that your story was kind of like colossal in the book uh,
Yeah.
last year. And so are you great? Are you happy that you sit somewhere in the median of story lengths versus other stories that have gone into like the 7,000 plus story length?
For sure, for sure, yeah.
Because that was the first thing I noticed as I was doing my own stats and figures and looking at things. I was like, oh, he's been unseated.
Yeah, well, so in the stats that I have here, John Ward is the longest at 8,800 words.
Mm,
And Kay Castaneda is the shortest at 392 words. She wrote,
Right.
I think, horror poetry. I may have that wrong, but yeah. So yeah, and I think mine is around 5,600,
Hmm.
something along that line.
Jay, talk about what word count means in our stats.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I love the conversation people always have about word count. And it drives me nuts, and I hear it so often now that I just ignore it because I'm like, someone else, some other Substack note person is going to come along and let them know it really truly doesn't matter. But
Right.
yeah.
you could go ahead and echo that sentiment.
Length of story is something that comes up a lot in Substack, especially when, and I honestly don't know where it comes in at on the editor, somewhere in the 3,000 word range, or page length, or some combination of those two. I mean, Mills, if you're out there, we'd really love you that it's beyond email length. Secondary to that is people oftentimes on Substack say that long stories do not get play. We are not finding that in the data, truly. And part of it's that they're mixed up, right? These long stories are mixed up
Hmm.
between fantasy and sci-fi and allegory and horror and things like that. So people don't know, right? When they jump into a story, they don't exactly know how long it
Right.
is. Some of us pay attention to the side scroller bar when it shows up on your iPad or your phone or
Hmm.
whatever. I oftentimes don't. Um, but I think that people are just jumping into the story and hopefully just being immersed in what they're
Right.
reading.
Right.
And length doesn't matter at that point if you're really immersed in the story. So we're seeing, like I mentioned in the by the numbers post, that we're seeing zero correlation between length of story and whether or not people are reading it or restacking it or liking it,
Hmm.
which is huge.
Right. And really it should be, you shouldn't be constraining yourself to a word count if your story is not fully fleshed out the way you want it. So whenever someone comes to
Mhm.
me and says, I always give a suggestion. I suggest around 3,000, but if you need 6 to tell your story, then take 6. But just
Mhm.
remember that if you're not capturing the reader, if it really is a slog fest, then yeah, then maybe 6 was too long. And that's something you should take into account if you're expecting certain numbers, or if you used to get certain numbers with this length, but now you see it tapering off as you write longer pieces, then that's the data set is your own work. Because I'm going to name drop a few people here that we all know in the room. If Essie Reed was to drop a story at 15,000 words, I don't know that there's anyone who would say I'm not going to read that. We love her work. If she wrote something 2,000, if she wrote something 10, we're going to read it. Ben Wakeman is another one for me. If he writes a very long piece, I'm not going to say, well, it's too long. I'm sorry, Ben. You lost me. I'm just not going to read it. Like, there are certain readers that are like that. And that's only because through the test of time, through their consistency, through their continued writing that we've been reading every week, they can, quote unquote, get away with a longer story. So if you want to be a person who gets away with writing something that's longer, you need to be consistent. You need to write really good quality work, and you need to do it long enough that you could be J.R.R. Martin, and you could write a 300,000 word thing and people are just going to read it. If you're Joe Schmo, and you this is your second piece that you're releasing and it's 100,000 words, okay, sure, you're probably not going to get the views you wanted, right? That's just, I feel like, the
But
hard truth. So
there's also a format, right? So
right.
the format of 15,000 words is you're in novella territory, right?
Hmm.
And so the format of reading that for a viewer becomes a very different thing, and it probably needs to be
Chopped up.
split up
Right.
into chapters, right?
Hmm.
Like if you hit 100,000 words and you're trying to publish that on Substack, God bless you, but like dole it out a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
my novel Isla is 70,000 words, and it's like 36 chapters though.
Hmm.
Um, like you got to dole that stuff out to people.
Hmm.
So I think we gave a recommendation of around 4,000 words, which we thought like it's a little long, but plus minus that, it doesn't matter if you really engross people in the story. Like, what does it matter about the length is.
And it's a good,
Certainly,
I
like,
think it's a good exercise to be able to sometimes constrain yourself and sometimes give yourself more breathing room. Like for me, someone who writes
mhm,
100 word stories every single day, the exercise of writing beyond 100 words was very difficult, and it's been very difficult for me.
for
And
sure.
I'm writing a piece about that now where on one hand, it's been a blessing for me to have almost hit 950 consecutive days of writing 100 word stories. But then when I sit to write the Midnight Vault 2, and I'm thinking, can I just write a 100 word story today? Because I don't know how to write
Yeah,
101. Because
Nothing-
writing 101 is hard. And then
yeah,
102, and like thinking to go beyond 100 words is mind boggling. So when I hear someone say, oh, I wrote 6,000. Is that too long? I'm like, good on you, because to get me to
yeah.
do that is going to be very difficult to do. It's
I,
not
I'll
easy.
I'll say the same thing that I told a number of people so far. Like, you do you,
Right.
right? When people were asking about like the length of their story, I'm like, you do you. Like, make it your own. And if it's 50 words or 50,000 words, who cares? But you do your story.
And make it such an amazing story that the team here at the Midnight Vault can't say no to it, even at its phenomenal length of
Mhm.
like 8,000 words. You know what I mean? Like, it make sure every word counts, make sure the story has a beginning, middle, and end, has a twist, has all the things. And so one of the areas that I wanted to discuss, saying that I was trying to veer us away from the Twilight Zone, is one of the things I think that was, I don't want to say jarring, but um, confusing, and I don't know how confusing it is as people make their way through each story, is there are some people who stuck to the formula, if you will, of like having the opening monologue, having the closing
Mhm.
monologue. Do I say the Twilight Zone, or do I say the Midnight Vault? Like, do I put it in italics at the top? Like, where do I put it? How do I do it? Do I become Rod Serling for the day and I speak like Rod as I embody the opening like which is essentially what I did when I wrote my opening and closing before I even wrote the story. I was like, I had to know how Rod opened and closed my story before I could tell it. And so
Yeah.
how much of, like, at some point do you want to, I don't want to say undo the formula, or just say we don't want you to do an opening and a closing? Like, did you find a lot of people having questions on that, who may not be familiar with the Twilight Zone, familiar with the opening and closing, familiar with that, and so they either decided not to do it, to do it? It was just like a mismatch. Like I said, as I was going through it, I was like, okay, that person didn't do it. Wait, this story is doing it. Let me put on my Twilight Zone episode watching hat now, because I felt more immersed in like a Twilight Zone episode when I saw a monologue come up at the beginning of someone's story, versus
Mm.
when I opened a story and there wasn't one. That's not to say the story wasn't good. It's just I felt like I had to take that hat off now and be like, okay, this is just a story. Let me just read it.
Yeah, that's
It's kind of like, what, like, how do you think about that as you move forward? Do you care? Is it, like, how does
Yeah,
that work?
I think this time around it was Jay's rule of thumb. You do you. That's
Right.
kind of how we stayed. If people wanted to adopt the homage part, great. I love it, and I think that's kind of the center of gravity for this project
Mhm.
is this homage to the Twilight Zone, and I don't want to lose that.
Mhm.
I think it's very important. I think we're inevitably, and even in this volume, we're seeing a little shift away from that, to be
Right.
honest, which could be just based on the sheer number of people submitting stories. But yeah, I think that thread maybe is going to get thinner and thinner the farther we go. So it'll be interesting to see.
Mhm. I think more than anything, and I'm happy that people wanted to use an intro and an outro. Like, that really sets the stage, and it really sort of puts a nice button at the end of the story. But at the end of it, the Twilight Zone was just about sort of revealing the, I don't know, strange machinery that's sort of beneath the familiar, right?
Mhm.
And like, that to me, if people are doing that in their stories, then like,
Yeah.
that's amazing because you're sort of taking the world as we know it and you're just giving it enough of a tilt that makes those stories meaningful.
And
That was really the idea. Oh, sorry,
no, go
Erica, go
ahead.
ahead. I was going to say it was really the idea, Jay, perfect setup for the template used for the cover images on the stories, which I'm really glad I was nudged into doing that. We weren't
I
going to
think you
do
got
that.
elbowed by CV
Yeah, yeah,
Mason about 50 times
yeah. It was
just to get that done.
CB and Sean and I think Ian and a few others, AP Murphy.
I
So I
love
put
it.
together some guidelines, but that template, what I loved about it is everybody gave me, I mean, such a broad spectrum of imagery. I got everything from like a stack of cookies to like a really scary demon. And what I loved about the template is that it did exactly what Jay's talking about. It put this filter, this lens over these images and kind of twisted them a little bit. It made them a little more gritty, a little darker, made them a little more mysterious, no matter what you gave me, it just converted. And then of course, seeing all of those in the feed, it was just so instant. You could immediately see that it was a Midnight Vault story. And I love that so much. Everybody did such a great job adopting that template. So
And feel free to to
Yeah.
steal this idea that I have, but I will fully say that I am expecting a poster of every single one of our images on it. As make it as small as you
Oh,
like, but I want all
that's not
98
crazy.
in a poster because I'm
that
buying
sounds
it.
pretty
15 by 7, 29 by 32. You do whatever size you want. But I'm expecting to get that poster, and then everyone get your silver Sharpies to sign it because it's going to be a very dark poster. So if you want to see, if you
yeah.
want it signed, it's going to have to be like a silver or white Sharpie to
Yeah.
sign it. But like I'm sure, Shane, you must be working on this poster right now as we speak. You thought of
Already
it.
done.
You already, it's already done. I knew it. I knew it would be. See, guys, I'm locked in. I know what the artists are thinking out there. It's like, oh, this poster is going to be sick with
It
all
is.
these images, and then rearrange them so that when it's zoomed out in a big poster, it's Rod Serling's face.
Oh man, dang, Erica, you're hired.
Or
You just
even
went all out.
better, it's Jay's face. Didn't see it coming. Like, oh shoot.
I would prefer if it's in the morning when my hair is just standing up and I look all crazy, like, I don't know, Doc Brown.
Okay, so I was going to ask like to end us all like where we go from here, but I think we know what's going to be coming next year, so I think you guys really need to just focus on what you have planned to finish out this year. But I would like to know, and I'm curious because sometimes if you have too long of a gap of a lull between one thing happening and the next, um, now that it seems like it's expected that that next November we're going to be, cobbling together somewhere in a Discord server, uh, planning our Volume 3 Midnight Vault. Do you have any in between ideas, or are you do you think this is enough, like 6 weeks we do this thing, then we go into our hobby holes and we tell people don't bother us, we're in a silo and we're putting this massive book together, and we'll see you when the book comes out and it launches, and we'll like party and we'll do the hell out of it, and then we're going to go back into hiding again until November when we release ourselves into the world and say, are you ready for Volume 3? Like, is there is there any idea of like in between activities or events or whatever, or is this a good cadence for you?
Nothing's off the table.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
yeah,
that like there's the very public things like this, which are open to everybody, and then there's sort of the personal projects, and then there's the in between stuff. I Sean McDonald is a good example of that. He and Shane and I are working on his new novella, which will come out in 2026. I think there are a ton of little projects like that.
Hmm.
I don't mean to belittle Sean's project, but I mean there's like a ton of interstitial things between now and then, which includes the Midnight Vault 2 hardback.
Hmm.
Um, I've sort of not made a secret of the idea that with having the people around us that we do, Brian and Shane and Sean and Sally and Emil, like all of these people, like we are putting together like a really great, and Lulu, a really great publishing platform. So I've not made a secret out of like that's sort of where I want to go, and I want to build a thing that allows us to do more individual books,
Right.
more activities, more sort of group things. But I want to work with the people that I love working with, right? And I want to like it's a hard thing to say. Don't turn your hobby into a job, but I really love working with these people, and I really love what we're doing. And so I keep having this phrase that comes around in my head that I heard the other day that I hadn't heard from anywhere else. It was Cole Haddon's interview with Ben Lee, where they were talking about magnanimous ambition. And it was the idea of you can still be ambitious, but as you do it, try to find other people that you can bring along with you, and everybody gets raised up by doing it. And so that's sort of what's on the table for me.
Mhm.
Like, I want to work with all these people again, and I want to find some other collaborators that we can continue to work and we can build a thing together.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm on board.
I already got you on speed dial, brother.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Just like Jay, I mean, there's just a ton of side projects throughout the year. Always looking for, I love designing books and book covers, and I've been very lucky to do more of that, namely because of my work on the Midnight Vault 1. So working with a lot of those authors to design their books that they're now publishing, and that's been amazing and great. I'm
You want to talk
also
about who those are?
Oh, I suppose I should.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Mr. J. Curtis himself, Tiny Worlds Volume 2, Miguel S. Stepan, who just published his book Quietus. I'm very proud of that cover. And then Stephen Duffy, I worked with him most recently on Fragile Steps. And I encourage you to buy all of those books because they're all great.
Yeah.
And had a blast working with those fellows on those things. But I'm also excited and hopeful that we're not the only ones in this game. So the things like weather reports and other sizable projects like that are very open invitation and calling on writers on this platform to join in and participate. I hate that there's only 24 hours in a day. I'm
Right.
trying to find ways to expand on that, but yeah, hopefully there'll be no shortage of things to do in the coming 12 months.
All right. Well, I look forward to when the book launches next year, and hopefully doing better time management on the Midnight Vault 3 when it comes time for me to write that story. Better time management is
Should we
definitely.
give you a 2 month heads up?
Yeah, that'd be great. And that way I could be even more late to the party because I am the biggest procrastinator. I'd be like,
We'll
oh,
just hear about
like,
it longer.
and then when you finally announce it, I'm gonna say, dang, they told me that 2 months ago, I didn't start it yet. Dang, they gave me a 2 month heads up and I still didn't get it done. Oh no, that would be horrible. Okay, so thank you all for agreeing to do this. I just last minute, I was like, hey, so I'm gonna be live next week. Do you want to jump on? I always bother Jay with these
Yeah,
questions. I'm like, so what do you think?
always.
Do you think everyone else would want to do it? And very last
Yeah.
minute?
I've been looking at the chat. It looks like it's been quiet,
Yeah, if
but
anyone has any questions, I should have said that a few minutes ago. I forget to make that announcement because I'm so busy watching that I feel like Substack needs to do a better thing about how I view the live chat because it seems so off to the side that I'm like I have to crane my neck to come over here to see it and see if anyone said anything.
I got a note that maybe it's set so that you have to upgrade to chat.
It shouldn't be, is it?
Hmm,
I know
might be.
that's not an option like when I go live, so I can't unfortunately I can't see that. If that's the case, I apologize, but like it gives you very few settings to set when you're going live. It's like the only setting I can really put is email your list or don't email. That's all I have
Yep.
the ability to
All good.
check. So if you couldn't chat in the chat, I'm so sorry. I mean, you were able to. Maybe that's just because you're That's weird because you did say
Because I'm
hi
not.
everyone
Oh,
in the
yeah,
chat. So I don't know how,
yeah.
and I don't have paid on for Top and Fiction, so it shouldn't even be it shouldn't even be a possibility because you there is no paid subscription on. But anyway, thank you all for being
Oh, good.
here. I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions. Hopefully, people got something out of it. I know for me, it's always, I feel like when I do these, it's like, yeah, I know there are people in the room, but it's really me gathering information for like my plans and my possible ideas for next year and like how can I make these things happen as well as everyone else, does them. And so, um, it's really a greedy thing for me to be able to do it. And I'm like, oh, I'll let other people hear what I have to, what's going on behind the scenes. Because I think a lot of people don't know how that works. Like they don't understand what goes into it. And I do. So I always want to put a face to, you guys just putting these posts out and putting these things together. It's not easy, I know. And so I appreciate it. I appreciate all the hard work and I hope that you get 200 next year. That's my goal for you, and I dare you to beat it.
That's going to delay volume 3 for another 6 months, I think.
Yeah, I feel like then you would have to divide and conquer. I don't think you could all read 200 and come out of it alive, looking the same.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Erica, thank you
yep,
for having us. Like,
of
this is
course.
wonderful, and we really appreciate all the support that you and Tiff bring to the community. I think it's amazing, truly.
Amazing.
I
Yeah.
try. I do my best. And like I said, there will be a small group. Like I think I picked 25 stories out of the 98 to kind of highlight in the issue that will come out later because now I have to wait for this video to be presented to me and it takes a while because it's an hour for it to because I don't just go with the post that it gives me. I take it, I download it, and then I re-upload it to the post I actually already wrote, which is another kind of
Okay.
annoying thing, but that's the only way it works for Substack to allow me to do that. But anyway, so in a few hours from now, you'll get that. You'll get this video if you weren't here live. You'll get to see it. If you did have any questions and you weren't able to leave it in the chat, please do leave it in the comments of that post. And these guys will see it and get notified and answer any questions that you might have. Um,
Happy to.
yeah. But otherwise, Brian, go to bed. Uh,
It's wine o'clock.
go finish your wine and go to bed. And gentlemen, thank you so much. And I'm going to figure out how to do this. Okay. And that's it, guys. Thank you. Bye.